Ravings after
Rulebooks Ravings.
Start again. Welcome to Rulebooks Ravings after technical difficulties last week, resulting in no episode. A few people thinking I just spat the dummy and hadn't done one. No, there was actually one film, but we had problems with getting it to load. So, okay, back to the footy. Congratulations to Richmond. That's all you can say. Uttering those words, Richmond Premiers, just seems so wrong in so many ways. Look, people asking, did I watch the Grand Final? No, I didn't. And wanting an explanation of why I'm so firm on that. Basically, I am disgusted with the AFL for the complete lack of respect it shows to the state league competitions. The lack of help to SNFL, Waffle, NEFL, etc. is disgraceful. How the AFL cannot see that if they continue to undermine the state competitions, they've killed off the VFA to completely undermine it, that you will lose the players who blossom late, like a Nick Digan, Paul Puopolo, etc., Lee Spur, those guys. You will lose that. How they cannot see that if you kill the game underneath, that you're completely destroying the top level as well. And the AFL only think of the elite level and the under 18s and don't care about anything else. The lack of planning, structure, etc. in place in that regard is unforgivable. Yes, fantastic on the women's push for footy. Great to have girls playing the sport, etc. But don't dare think that the AFL haven't got an agenda there where bonuses are played for numbers of participation. There's lots of things going on behind the scenes, and there is basically more politics in footy and in sport than in politics. And for me, it's just I just can't express my frustration enough on that. The more you're involved and find out things which happen, the more disgusted I've become and disillusioned with AFL footy. Look, Richmond, fantastic effort, coming from 13th. A lot of players there that we've got to give credit for, performed on the day and the season, especially Grimes and Asprey, the two there. With Asprey, congratulations to his father, Craig, one of the world's best blokes, lived over in Adelaide for a while, a great bloke, so I rap for him in that way. And Grimes, he's had a fantastic year. He's always had hamstring problems, so maybe there. Look, Basher Hurley, I thought he would have been a huge weakness for Richmond. It turned out the other way from the highlights I've seen in that way. So I think the other thing now that we can say, throw the idea of a premiership window out the door. You've had Western Bulldogs are now Richmond. Like Richmond this year, most people didn't have them in the 8. So I think those days now, the AFL have got what they wanted in terms of an even competition. Wish the draw, I totally agree personally with some of the comments which have come out lately from Paul Roos to only play 17 games. I couldn't agree more on that in that way for actual, a little bit more fairness in that way. The other thing too, let's be honest, Richmond were kissed on their dick in terms of the whole program for the finals, getting to play Geelong at the MCG when it should have been at Condinia Park if it wasn't just about money. And I would love to see a two-legged final series at the minimum. Now people say, what are you on about? Well, imagine if in that grand final, in the last quarter, when the game was done and dusted, if it had still been effectively been alive for next week, the Crows trying to cut the deficit back to 5 goals to play them at Adelaide Oval. Have a look at the record. I think you still would have probably fancied Adelaide starting at -30 odd at Adelaide Oval. I just think in that way, again, it would get rid of a lot of it. Being honest, it's still a VFL competition. Just happens to be extended. The VFL basically was a competition gone bankrupt, and it should have been a whole new competition start. But no, the licence fees and then the television money have saved the VFL. They were nearly under. Collingwood, Richmond, there were clubs there gone. Hawthorn and Melbourne nearly merged. Let's not forget all of that. Late breaking news, TK! It's happened! Free kick to Betts! The game's back on! Everyone back to the G! Continue on! Now, okay, we're mucking around in that regard, and you can't say the umpires can make 8 goals different, but I've always found that an amusing comment at the time because we'll never know what would happen since. The Crows maybe go up in front at half-time, the game's completely different. So I've always found that a bit of an amusing comment. You can't say they were crucified by the umpiring. having seen some highlights, and especially that one and the other non-one to Brad Crouch, it's not a surprise that they didn't get the 50-50s over in Melbourne. It's another reason for a two-legged final series. And I'm sorry, as I harped on about Cochin, I've now spoken to numerous players. I did happen to be with an assistant coach of a club on the weekend, not Crows, and not Port actually, who was even far firmer that it's a farce that Cochin didn't get suspended. So we have this bit of, we don't want people to miss the grand final for that. So we changed the rules effectively for a grand final, and yet we then ignore effectively the Brownlow, where Dangerfield got suspended for a tackle in the Brownlow. It's so hypocritical. The biggest award should always be the peer awards, your coach's award, your MVP. Now, Jonathan Brown hurt the MVP a while ago. While it was funny, where he organised a lot of people to vote for Loney as the most courageous player in the comp, where he didn't just sleep with the fluoro on, he slept with every light on in the universe. That didn't help. We really want those awards to be the pinnacle, is what it should be. From our rugby expert, Neil Padley. Glasses on. Neil Padley, also known as Big Carl, because he was like Carl Rackerman, he broke down every 5 minutes. And now to the toughest sport in Australia, with a team that is clinical as Dr. David beating the North Queensland Cowboys, who actually finished 9th until the Dragons lost in the last game of the year, the Richmond position. The Melbourne Storm have secured another premiership, assuming they won't get done for salary cap rorting again. The Storm are just so ruthless and robotic, they put the old Mitsubishi car plant at Tonsley to shame. So what will happen to the Storm? The Fab 4 became the Fab 3, and now with Cooper Cronk moving on, it's now the Fab 2. I'd thought that Billy was like Tex, went missing in big games and become like Australian cricket team flat track bullies. I emphasise this is from Neil Padley. How I have to admit that Billy has become bigger, stronger and better. Let's hope Tex learns from him. But what is the key for the Storm is that the GOAT, Cameron Smith, is a big enough tank to carry the Storm to yet another minor premiership and grand final tilt. But next year it will be against the mighty New Zealand Warriors. And yes, Neil Padley did live in New Zealand for quite a while as well. So thank you there, Carl. Let's go to the soccer. Incredible that we now have Australia scrape through to the next stage, playing Honduras, and we have the coach in Ann Postecoglou saying that he's only going to coach those 2 games and then quit before the World Cup. Imagine an AFL, a team making the finals, quitting beforehand because he's fed up with the media criticism. It's a different sport. Look, Tim Cahill, what a superstar. Where does he rank in Australia's best ever sportsmen, best ever soccer players, etc.? 37 years of age, played the full 120 minutes. He's the reason that we've scraped through to the next game. And if anyone who wants, in terms of the soccer followers, hearing some of the soccer commentary from yesterday with America and missing out, and that they make Stephen Rose seem like Marcel Marceau. It was quite extraordinary to say the least there. And netball, well done to the Australian Diamonds last night. So they've beaten New Zealand and won the Constellation Cup again there. It's 5 straight against the Sheep, so a very good record. And that's a well done to the girls there. Bake of the week is the media. How in the hell the media are allowed to invent bullshit, lies, stories about anything in the footy industry and no accountability. Any of the rest of us in our workforce, you did that, you're sacked within 5 minutes. We can just make up a figure that they're after this player, Motlop, or Gibbs is still happening, or it's not. It's just throwing darts, and you're waiting for the players to, 180 as they get one right in the darts board. It is a farce. The media has got so big, like this trade radio, 24 hours a day of trade radio. Well, of course they're going to have to make up bullshit because there's nothing else to say. It is a joke that the media have got away with, and yet the media don't see it sexy enough to bother to do an article on the possible ramifications if the Crows hadn't picked Lever, which anyone following me knows how deadbeat and how irate I am that they haven't bothered to do that. And don't dare, and I have bothered to do my research on that. I have contacted the AFL Players Association. I've spoken to 2 player managers. I begrudgingly did get a reply from the AFL. So I have bothered to do my research. And look, I think the other sobering point, let's go back to cricket, which we must mention, is Ben Stokes. Now, let's remove cricket from it. Cricket's irrelevant compared to what else he's done. This bashing, he should be in jail for it. It's extraordinary. Culture seems to be a big thing there as well, and it's come out now at 3 o'clock in the middle of a test match, things like that. But whatever the English equivalent of Yatler is, they may have picked up a very handy all-rounder for the next season, I would think. So, I'll wait to see on AFL, unless there's deep changes and at least even hint of changes, you can shove AFL up your Khyber as far as I'm concerned. In terms of other things this week, there's been some good stuff, some incredible things. So overall, rulebooks, ravings, over and out. I forgot to do the bets bit. Can we go back?
Oh, and just like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will.